Welcome to Java, and thank you very kindly for joining me. It's July 11th, 2025, and also Friday, going into weekend. So while there's a light calendar today, there's still plenty to go over, as well as some of the new record high that we're seeing here. So as always, let's get started with what's going on in the markets. Now, still an extreme greed territory, so this is what's driving the market, although volatility has dropped out. So we've really got to watch this. Let's take a look at the other factors. Gonna keep our eyes on the 10-year yield, of course. It's up slightly. If this goes up more, we're watching this for the volatility. So if this increases more, this will put pressure on the stock market as it shows more of a risk off trade. We'll go more into gold. So gold and silver, those are also on the rise, kind of showing this. They are in a good setup at the moment. And oil recovering from the OPEC moves. So we've got the relative strength of the dollar actually strengthening slightly. This is relative terms. It's still losing purchasing power, but in relative terms to the other currencies, it's gained a bit of strength this morning. Now, we are watching in these US markets, they closed green, another all-time high. Cryptocurrencies were the real story overnight, also at another all-time high. Bitcoin hit 118,000. It's pulled back a bit since. Ethereum's also at above 3,000 for that one. So kind of setting up here, and we'll see if it consolidates to continue. It's definitely got a little more room it can run now that it's come above that resistance level. So the futures right now for the markets in the United States are looking weak, uh, kind of contradictory, and showing this risk off could come in middle of the day or a little earlier. And then, as it is always with the weekend, going into the weekend, and I'll talk about the calendar in a moment, but there's not much going on Monday. So what does that mean? That means that the overall setup is very similar to a 3-day holiday weekend, and we're in a very headline driven market. So it's primed for a move, and we'll talk about that in a moment too. So, daily driver right now, greed, complacency coming in here, and we're watching this in the volume drops. It is the trader killer because it kind of numbs traders out to where they're not paying attention to the signals they ought to be watching. So this is a little bit more riskier time despite the grind out. European market is down with all of this. They've got a couple of other debt issues. We've got the UK meeting with Macron and a couple of other things going on politically. Now, Asia was mixed in the overnight markets, and going to talk about Asia a little bit as well. Now, I had brought up complacency coming into the markets a couple of days ago, and now we've got Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase also warning that the market may be underestimating the risks again, and he is also flagging investor complacency. So, as I said, it's not often that I agree with him, but in this case, definitely. Now, with some of this shift, it's the no tariffs that have been threatened on Canada. So, Canada getting some increases. There's also Vietnam was a story overnight. They're a little surprised over their rates. But the thing to watch, and it's kind of being a little bit quiet, Trump is to make a quote unquote major statement on Russia on Monday. So I wouldn't put it past him to actually come out with some kind of statement or some issuance or something happening with Russia prior to Monday, because it's a prime setup to allow something on a major move to soak into the markets, give them time to think about it before Monday morning. So let's go over a little bit. First off, as I said with the calendar, not much today. The US federal budget, we know it's ridiculous. So we can just leave it at that. It's not going to affect the market really that much. Monday, not much going on as well. So we do have the US State Department to begin mass layoffs in the coming days. So could also see a statement coming out of them later today. As I said, still very headline driven, so a lot of caution in these markets. We've got cautionary signals coming out in the latest United States jobs report. Now the government themselves are cutting jobs, so this is going to accelerate, and it has to accelerate to a point to where they cannot deny it, is pretty much the way they've set it up right now. Now, this is actually a headline, even though this is something that I say frequently. Bitcoin's rally, or even the equities or stock market rally, is not a reflection of higher value, but rather of the dollar's weakness. So the dollar, as the dollar loses its strength and purchasing power, we see it as inflation and in prices increasing for everything we want to purchase. So UK, taking a switch over there for a moment. This is a little bit larger story. London Heathrow has now slated $13 billion in order to upgrade their main terminal there in London Heathrow. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is this includes massive upgrades to their systems, as well as not just 5G, but they're going to a new order there as well. Now, this is at the same time that the FAA is upgrading a lot of the airports in the United States. Yes, they're linked. Yes, there is a lot of frequency issues here. They have forced some of the airlines to upgrade their systems in order to go onto 5G. So that's for later discussion or something else off of this platform. Now we've got drone stocks surging because the Pentagon ordered a ramp up in production. And kind of the angle that they're getting at is they want in essence, every soldier to own and control smaller drones. So they're coming up with a little bit more of a different tactic. And this is kind of showing forward with this. So this morning, drone stocks definitely up. We've got Bank of Japan may likely opt for gradual selling of ETFs. Now, they have been on an ETF purchasing spree for the past, I believe it's 13 years or so. Now, because of the shift in what has happened and their economy having some serious issues, they're saying they're not going to dump them all at once. They're trying to sell them off responsibly. And a part of that is announcing that they're going to be doing this sell off. So look to the ETFs to have some weakness there. And this could also be a trigger for some of this going in. Now, another marker that's kind of being ignored, commercial lending. This is specific to the United States in this report, but it's fallen to its lowest level since 2012. Over $30 billion in commercial mortgage-backed securities. 80% of them that are overdue, $31 billion worth, are overdue, are over 90 plus days overdue. So this pretty much shows an intent not to cure, which means they're not going to pay, which means they're going to be sold for pennies on the dollar. So that also another flag. Now, the problem with this, the main holders of these mortgage-backed securities, one of the larger holders is Bank of America. So these are the banking sector. And the ones that are exposed to these, I believe the first is Bank of America, with close behind it is Wells Fargo. But we've got these banking giants that if they cannot roll this debt over, they're going to have serious problem. Few other things. United States. This is really what we've been talking about and saying the direction that is going to happen. Stablecoins as a key to preserving the dollar's reserve status. Now, I don't expect it would do it for a long time, but it could push it forward. So they've been very seriously trying to push towards this. Looks like it would be Circle, Jack Ma backed Ant Group. Now, this is one of the larger corporations out of China, is looking at USDC stablecoin for their own blockchain. So this tells me that this is probably going to be the one coin to rule them all, if you will. I could be wrong. They've got a few up there. Tether, USDC Circle, So these all competing for this position. Now, Bitcoin, again, it shoved past this 118,000 level, and that liquidated over $1 billion in shorts. So people were betting against it. They got wiped out. But now that they have wiped out this massive amount of money, this is what market makers do. They usually swing to the other side and clear out those that get too bullish. So, a couple of last stories. And they're not necessarily market related, although they'll definitely have an effect. The USS Michael Mansour arrives in Japan for a port visit. Now, this is a stealth ship, one of the first of its kind. It is top in its class, and they are, as I've been saying, deploying more assets over to the east. Now, it looks like a lot of things ramping up, and in particular, this is in opposition to North Korea. So, watching a few things happen there as well as Taiwan, just to keep you open to that, because a lot of the trade that is going on there and all of this is suppressed in the United States news. It's not that you can't find it, but it's not readily available and it's not being fed out really through the mainstream media. So another thing, I was just speaking about her yesterday from the UN investigator, talking about the abuses in Gaza and what is happening with some of the things going on there. And now the United States has sanctioned her. So you're not allowed to speak up against it. You're not allowed to bring up what they are doing with their war, causing their war economy, expanding these because they must. This increases the debt to increase the inflation, and this keeps the debt rolling forward. So since it cannot pay it off, they have to have this production, and the only way they've got this geared forward is this. And if this doesn't work, that's when we see the false flags. That's when the events, if you will, in air quotes, begin to happen. So going into the weekend with all of this, not a fear, just to be aware. Much love to all of you. I wish you a wonderful weekend. And until I see you again, my friends, resist.